We had a huge weekend of Riftbound tournaments over in America with 2 massive 10Ks. We're taking a look at the best deck lists. Give the video a like. We've also got some spicy deck lists. Subscribe to the channel. Sett won the event at Charlie's Collectible show. Colin Kaisa taking it down, beating a Master Yi non-Dazzling Aurora in the final. And then at the other event with 386 players, it was a one-day event, I believe, and the top 4 ended up splitting because it was going on for so long. There was 2 Ahris, a Kaisa, and a Sett. So we're going to take a look at the best lists, some of the spicy lists as well. Thanks to Card Market, Stacked Deck still the most sold card of the week. We can see a lot of purple, blue, and green cards in the best sellers, which suggests that these are like the most budget-friendly decks and things that you can expect to see a lot at your locals. Also, Falling Star and Darius in the mixer as well. These are cards which can be played as well as Cleave in either Kaisa or Ahri as well. If you guys are in Europe and hosting Riftbound tournaments and you would like me to come to it, send me an email. I'd love to come to your event. I can broadcast it to my channel. I can be a player. I can be a commentator. It would be awesome to start attending more Riftbound events and bringing the community more live streams. The first thing I want to talk about this Sett deck is the 3 battlefields, because the battlefield selection is brilliant. What usually happens in Riftbound is the first match, you don't know if you're going first or second, so you just want like a generically good battlefield. And the Monastery of Harana is a perfect example of that. When you conquer here, you may spend a buff to draw 1. This deck plays a bunch of buffs. You've got Sithria, Pit Rookie, you've got the Arena Bar, you've got the Kinko Monk, you've got all sorts of ways of buffing characters, and you also don't have many ways of drawing cards. Most of the other decks in the meta, like Kaisa, Teemo, Ahri, Yi, don't really play many buff cards. Yi might play some, but probably not really any at all. Maybe a few. So this is just going to be better for you than your opponent. That's what you're hoping for on a battlefield. Then we've also got the Dreaming Tree. The Dreaming Tree here is the first time you choose a friendly unit with a spell each turn, draw 1. So this battlefield, lots of decks can take advantage of it. For example, if you play Stupefy or Retreat as a blue player onto one of your own cards there, you get to draw very, very easily. Sett doesn't have that many great ways of triggering the Dreaming Tree, but it does have a few. For example, it's got Call to Glory, it's got Primal Strength, Hidden Blade, and Challenge. Now, even though Kaisa, even though Teemo, even though Ahri, they might actually be able to draw off the Dreaming Tree a little bit more easily, arguably, possibly not Ahri, but certainly Kaisa and Teemo. So you might say, well, why would you do that if you're giving Kaisa a big advantage? Well, I think the logic here is that the card draw that Sett can gain from this battlefield is more valuable. Kaisa has a lot of ways of drawing cards, so does Teemo. Sett's biggest weakness is card draw. So having a battlefield which gives you a way of drawing some extra cards, which you play going second, makes a lot of sense. In a lot of matchups, when you go second, your opponent is going to play a battlefield which abuses going first, like Grove of the Godwillow. So if your opponent, imagine they play Grove of the Godwillow when they're going first, you're going second, you pick the Dreaming Tree, they're probably going to move straight into the Grove of Godwillow, meaning that you can move into the Dreaming Tree, and then you start playing cards like Challenge, choose a friendly unit and an enemy unit, they deal damage equal to their mights to each other to control the board, and then you get to draw a card as a result as well. The benefit of the Dreaming Tree is really, really good, and it's a battlefield which is quite solid going second as a result. But the battlefield which is just best going first, and it's my pick for, if I had to ban one battlefield in Riftbound, if I had to predict one card to get banned in Riftbound at some point in the future from the first set, my money would actually be on Grove of the Godwillow. So Riftbound's got a very intricate design, which balances, in my opinion, quite well if it's better to go first or second. Because, of course, the player going second gets that extra rune. I think it's a very interesting dynamic. However, battlefields like Grove of the Godwillow kind of like spoil that nice balance because it just heavily skews the player going first so much. We know that Master Yi is really good at abusing this battlefield because if you imagine as a Master Yi player, you move your Poro into the Grove on your second turn, and then you just leave it on its own, and it's going to have +2 might. That would mean you have like a 5 might guy just chilling at the Grove of Godwillow. If your opponent can't answer it, you're just going to hold and draw, and then you can put more cards there if you so desire, or just keep using your Yi ability. You can snowball really, really quickly. So while Sett's not as good at abusing the Grove of the Godwillow as Master Yi, it's still just so good that if you can hold this, you're going to snowball so quickly. It if I play against a Sett player and they move into the Grove of Godwillow on their first turn, or second turn rather, I am going to be trying to do everything I can to take that battlefield over. If I do, I'm probably in a winning position. If I don't, I'm probably cooked. And like, you can't really just ignore them a lot of the time. It's such a strong battlefield. Like, one strategy against the Grove of Godwillow is that if you expect your opponent, like Master Yi, for example, to play the Grove of Godwillow when they're going first, you can actually play it yourself when you're going second, because then you just ignore them totally. They hold their Grove of Godwillow. Instead of trying to contest it, which is like a losing battle, you just move into your own one. So I'm definitely going to watch the games back to see if Colin did that at all. That's something interesting. Let me know in the comments if that's something that you saw happen. Sett Kingpin is the chosen champion. I get +1 might for each buffed friendly unit at my battlefield. There was the full playset of Sett Kingpins in the main deck, so 1 is the champion. There was also 2 Sett Brawlers on the sideboard, which you can move into the deck and put as your chosen champion for game 2 and 3 if you wish. When I'm played and when I conquer, buff me and spend my buff, give me +4 might this turn. Of course, the Sett Boss Legend is synergizing heavily with buffed cards. You need buff cards in order for it to be good. And this deck has an abundance of buffs with Pit Rookie, Cytherea, Arena Bar, and Kinko Monk. Only 7 2-drops. Now, 7 2-drops is very, very greedy, because you're going to miss your 2-drops quite often with just playing 7. But in a deck which doesn't have much card draw, it's really punishing to play lots of 2-drops, right? Like, if you play purple, for example, you get access to Stack Deck and Traveling Merchant, where you have a lot of filtering. You can like discard 2-drops. You can use Stack Deck to like find your big card like Thousand Tailed Watcher and put it into hand. But a deck like Sett doesn't have much card draw. It doesn't have much filtering. So the more 2-drops you play in your deck, the worse your top decks become. So it's a very conscious decision to be very greedy with the amount of 2-drops. They're playing the full set of Pit Rookies and Cytherea because of the buff synergy, and they do just add in 1 Daring Poro just to give themselves a little bit of extra consistency in finding a turn 1 play without like butchering their top decks. And that's another reason to play a full play set of the first mate, because if you're going second, you can play the first mate on turn 1. When you play me, ready another unit. Okay, listen, that's not the ideal use case for first mate, but it's still an option that you have. And first mate is such a good card, one of my favorite cards in the whole game. When you play me, ready another unit. It's a great aggro tool to score some extra points. If you hold a battlefield, you can move that card back to your base, play the first mate, ready that card, move it into the other battlefield. And it's almost like giving something ganking, right? It gives you the opportunity to move around the board more freely and score more points. And it's just got that extra benefit of, if you don't have anything else, you can play it on your first turn going second, because you really don't want to be missing turns in this game. The current meta in Riftbound is very, very fast-paced and tempo-orientated. If you're going second and you don't play anything on your first turn, you're probably going to lose the game 90% of the time, if not more. Now, Fiora is, when I'm mighty, I have deflect, ganking, and shield. And of course, if you buff her, she will be mighty. So that makes a lot of sense. I love having cards at this sort of cost, 4 cost, that don't have any power cost. Like, at these kinds of turns, you don't really want to be spending a power if you can at all help it. So Fiora is like the perfect card to play on turn number 2 if you're going first. Kinko Monk, which when you play me, buff 2 other friendly units. There's also Kiana. When I conquer, draw 1 or channel 1 Rune Exhausted. I believe this and Hidden Blade are the only 2 ways to draw cards in this deck outside of the battlefields. There's Lee Sin, which can enter ready if you use the Accelerate. I also love that Lee Sin, you can just play it for 6 without recycling anything if you want, but then it's got that, of course, additional bonus to be able to enter ready if you so desire. The Arena Bar for more buffs. Sabotage, there's also 1 Sabotage on the sideboard. Great card against Dazzling Aurora, as you can discard that big powerhouse gear. 3 Showstoppers, which is Sett's signature spell. I would imagine it's probably one of the most expensive cards in this deck. Buff a friendly unit in your base, then move it to a battlefield. Such a strong combat, not combat trick, but like way of initiating a combat, way of scoring more points. Obviously, huge synergy with the boss leader ability as well, because when you conquer, you can ready it, so you could trigger the boss multiple times a turn with like this movement tool Movement tools are really, really good. If Showstopper existed as a non-signature spell, we would see it in a lot of decks. But of course, you can only play this in the set. There's a lot of legends which have really lackluster signature spells. Like I'm looking at you, Annie, who has the only signature unit in the game, I believe, with Tibbers. That is terrible. It's never going to find its way into the deck. So having a signature spell which is this good is a huge boost to the set decks. 3 challenge, 2 hidden blades, 3 call to glory. This is a card you have to be wary of if you're playing against sets, because as you play this, you may spend a buff as an additional cost if you do ignore this spell's cost. So if your opponent has 3 call to glories in hand and 3 buffs, they could get +9 might despite having 0 energy. A lot of the time in Riftbound, you look at your opponent, you're like, oh, you tapped out? Okay, I'm free to do whatever I want. Well, call to glory has other ideas. Primal Strength's in there as well as a 2 of. Unyielding Spirit, 2 copies of that on the sideboard, prevent all spell and ability damage. There's also 2 Salvage, which is gear removal, great against Dazzling Aurora, and also really good against the Ziona's Hourglass, Zonia's, I can't pronounce this one. The comments don't like it, but whatever. Salvage, great option to deal with gear. The fact it replaces itself is really nice. Imperial Decree, when any unit takes damage this turn, kill it. And those 2 Sett Brawl as well. Huge shout out to Colin Kaisa. He dominated the Kaisa decks. He popped off. And a great performance as well from Luna. And she made it all the way to the finals with a non-Dazzling Aurora version of Master Yi. The Grove of the God Willow, again, abusing that battlefield when you know you're going first. This will be the choice. And then the other 2 battlefields, you're going to pick one of these in game 1 when you don't know if you're going first or second. And then the other one is going to be like picked out specifically if you're going first or second. And I would wager that probably the Obelisk of Power is picked for when you're going second. At the start of each player's beginning phase, that player channels 1 rune. What's really interesting about the Obelisk is you can sort of sideboard accordingly when you're picking this battlefield, right? Like if you're going to go second with the Obelisk, suddenly you could play Kiana on your first turn, right? So, I mean, there aren't really many examples of that. The Catalyst is one example, right? You could sideboard in your Catalyst when you're playing the Obelisk of Power, because on your first turn, you could play this ramp card. Like that is a strategy we do see some players utilizing, but you could also just play like two drops, whatever it might be. And then the Vymore's Law, units can't be moved from here to base. Again, this is another one of those battlefields. It's probably the battlefield you just play in game 1. It's going to give you more advantage than your opponent because Fight or Flight is a very common purple card, for example, that has some movement capabilities. And that's sort of counters Fight or Flight quite nicely. What I like about this deck is it's very cleanly built with 3 Hourglass, 3 Charm, 3 Defy, 3 On Guard, 3 Discipline, and 3 Find Your Center. These are like some of the most staple green cards available, and it's an example of why green can be quite a budget-friendly deck when you have all of these staple cards being very, very affordable. However, Deadbloom Predator is going to increase the price of this deck quite a bit. Deadbloom Predator, it's like a 65, 64 euro card. So Deadbloom Predator definitely making this one pretty expensive. Master Yi is the Chosen Champion. It's a card I love. The 2 drops, we've got 9 of them, as well as 2 Wielder of Water, which of course you can play in your first turn when you're going second. Clockwork Keeper is another example of an interesting 2-drop because it's like bad. It's like fine to play early because it's a 2-drop, it gives you consistency. But it's like I was mentioning with like Sett, 2-drops are bad top decks, but actually Clockwork Keeper is a pretty good top deck when you have an abundance of runes because you can just pay a power and it replaces itself and you can dig deeper into your deck to find those big powerhouse cards. Tasty Fae folks in there, White Flame Protector as well. In terms of the sideboard, there's 2 Sabotage, 2 Unyielding Spirit, 2 Rune Prism, which is a stun effect, and a 3rd White Flame Protector as well. Great to see Master Yi still doing the business without Aurora. Annie came in 3rd. Great result for Annie. I have been playing and experimenting quite a bit with Annie this weekend, and it's a deck I think is great. And one really cool strategy is to use Scrap Heap in the main deck. You are going to be sideboarding this out for game 2 and 3, but that means that your first battlefield you'll pick is Zorn Warrens. When you conquer here, discard 1, then draw 1. And then you've got 2 other battlefields. You've got Arena's Greatest. That's going to be for when you're going first. You're going to want to use this. It's my favorite battlefield. Very, very aggro. And then the Dreaming Tree, as we mentioned earlier, is quite an interesting battlefield to play when you're going second. Because you can get some use cases out of it with like Fight or Flight, maybe Ride the Wind, maybe Flash, Cleave as well. So that's pretty nice. But yeah, the Scrap Peep is just going to be in the deck for the Zorn Warren synergy, obviously the Traveling Merchant synergy as well, and then you can sideboard it out for the rest of the game. So like Gust and probably the Veins are going to come into the mix. This one is playing, how many 2-drops? 9 2-drops, 3 of those being Vi, which you'd rather not play on the first turn because it has the power cost. There are a few other 2-drop options, but they go for the Pouty Porro and the Traveling Merchant. The Traveling Merchant's a no-brainer. The Pouty Porro with that deflect ability is nice as well. It can be good against Kaisa in particular. Sort of feeds into your aggro game plan in many ways, right? Like forcing your opponent to remove it to pay a power, I think is a really good aggro tool. I do like the Pouty Porro a lot. Sneaky Deckhand in this deck is brilliant. It's one of my favorite cards in the game, particularly when going second, you can play it to an open battlefield. The problem is for every other deck in the game, if you play a Sneaky Deckhand on your first turn when you're going second, your opponent probably has a 2-drop in their base. They ready all their runes, they move the 2-drop in, they play a combat trick and your Sneaky Deckhand dies, and like you're in a really bad spot. But of course, in an Annie deck, you can play the Sneaky Deckhand to an open battlefield when you're going second, you ready 2 runes, and then you can protect your Sneaky Deckhand with cards like Ride the Wind, Flash, Fight or Flight, etc. Your opponent's going to be terrified. So I really, really love the Sneaky Deckhand in Annie in particular. Vi is, of course, your big finisher. It also has great synergy with the Traveling Merchant. Kaiser's just a no-brainer. You can play it as a 4-cost card with no power in your base chilling, or it has that option to enter accelerated. And of course, when I conquer, draw 1, very powerful. 3 Darius, which is a great card because it can essentially enter ready if you play Darius. And then another card, even just like a 1-cost stack deck or a 1-cost cleave, it can ready. But it can also ready itself during the next turn, right? Like let's say you hold with Darius, you move it to your base, you play 2 cards, Darius readies again, you can move into the other battlefield. It's another really good tempo, aggro kind of tool. 3 cleave, 3 stack deck. 1 Falling Star, 2 Fight or Flight, 3 Flash is a lot of Flash, 3 Ride the Wind, which is another great aggro tool, move a friendly unit and ready it, as well as 3 Void Seekers. Then the sideboard, again, you're going to be probably taking out all 3 Scrap Peeps for game 2 and 3. I would imagine that Gusts are going to come in when you're playing second. It's a great way of protecting your Sneaky Deckhand as well. Falling Star, Rebuke, Fading Memories, and 2 Vayne. Really, really love to see Annie do well. Top 4 Kaisa. First Kaisa deck of the weekend we're going to look at. I'm sure it's not the last. They've got Reaver's Row, the Dreaming Tree, and Zorn Warrens as the battlefields. In terms of 2-drops, they have 8. They have 2 Yordles, 2 Noxus Hopeful. I would always play 3 of this card. I think it's Giga Broken. So strong. Was that Annie deck not playing Noxus Hopeful? That's interesting. I would expect Noxus Hopeful in Annie as well, but it's not in there. It's one of my favourite cards, I have to say. Hextech Ray Cleave, Retreat, 1-time Warp, 1 Icarthian Rain, 3 Stupefiers. In terms of the sideboard, there's some Thermo Beams, there's a Mega Mech, there's an Unchecked Power. I'm sure we're going to be looking at lots of Kaisa decks. This one's also using Grove of the God Willow to play going first, and it's got Void Gate and Dreaming Tree as the other 2. There's a Legion Rearguard in this one. This one's on 6. Also 8 1-drops, but like a little bit of variety. This one's on 3 Noxus Hopeful, 3 Yordles, 1-time Warp, 2 Icarthian Rain as well. There's a Mundo on the sideboard. Master Yi, this one is also not playing Dazzling Aurora, which is interesting. It seems like most of the Yi decks I've been looking at in the last couple of weeks have been Aurora, but 2 in the top eight here without it. Only 2 first mates in this one. In terms of 2-drops, we've got 8. There's 2 Kianas, 3 Tasty Fae Folk, and then we've got only 2 Hourglass, which I think is fine in this version. I think if you're playing Dazzling Aurora, you definitely want 3, but honestly, I quite like 2 as a count when you're not playing Dazzling Aurora. Like when you play a Dazzling Aurora deck, you don't want many characters, so many units. You need to fill your deck with spells and with gear. And in that deck, I think it's particularly strong. In this deck, it's still good, but 3 does feel like a lot when you don't have much filter. So I actually really like the 2 count of it here. 3 Charm, 3 Defy, 3 On Guard, 3 Discipline, 3 Find Your Center, 1 Mystic Reversal in the main deck, as well as 1 Wind Wall in the sideboard. We've got another Annie in the top 8, same battlefields. This one has 8 2-drops, 3 Sneaky Deckhands, as well, of course. Gust is in there. Scrap Peep also going for that Zorn Warrens. Scrap Peep, 3 Flash, 2 Fight or Flight. Again, I would personally play 3 Fight or Flight. I think it's such an insanely good card with so much flexibility. But you have to find room for everything somewhere. There's a Vayne in the main deck here. Falling Star, Void Seeker, Rebuke, Fading Memories, and Gust on the sideboard. Kaisa in the top 16. We are going to look at the whole of the top 16 of this tournament and then some of the more spicy decks in the top 32. This one is quite different, to be fair, with the Arena's greatest Kaisa. So it's a very tempo-orientated Kaisa. That is a very bold move for Kaisa. They're going to be playing this when they go first. Electron Yordle, Noxus Hopeful, Darius, Draven. That'll be so good in the mirror matchup going first. Draven is very, very fascinating. My might is increased by your points. Another example of this being a very tempo-heavy deck. I love Draven in the baited hook decks because you can get it out much more cheaply. Not convinced I like playing it without the baited hook. Baited hook is this yellow gear which you can destroy one of your cards, search for top 5, and play a card with might 1 more than the destroyed card. So essentially, if you destroy a character with 2 might or more, and you see Draven in the top 5 cards of your deck, you can play Draven. Which is really, really good because you're basically sacrificing a 2 might card for a huge guy. When you have to play it from hand, I'm not quite as impressed. A power cost for a card that doesn't come in ready or can't ready. I'm a little bit skeptical about how good that is. It's definitely not bad, but there's a reason we don't see Draven too often in these decks. It's certainly an interesting option, and of course you can sideboard it out as well. And actually it's good in mirrors, and maybe this is a very much aimed at just dealing with the Kaisa mirrors. That certainly seems to be the case. Another Kaisa deck, this one also on Arena's greatest, but no Draven in this one. Unchecked Power, Time Warp, Icarthian Rain, all in the mixer as well. I looked at so many Kaisa decks. Let's look at some of the other ones. We've got a Misfortune Dazzling Aurora deck, the first Dazzling Aurora deck of the video. So Misfortune is a great option with Dazzling Aurora because you get access to a really good champion card, Chosen Champion. This can come in ready, and the first time I move each turn, you may ready something else that's exhausted. That includes runes, worth noting as well, which is pretty cool. But the big reason really is the purple cards you get access to, like Mind Splitter. When you play me, choose an opponent, they reveal their hand, choose a card from it, and they discard that card. That is such a strong card in Dazzling Aurora Mirrors. The other purple cards that you get access to, that's really the big decision with what leader you play with Dazzling Aurora. Do you go Volibear? Do you go Misfortune or Master Yi? It's not so much necessarily the Chosen Champion, it's more the color that you gain access to. When you play Yi, you get the green cards. When you play Misfortune, you get the orange cards. And when you play Volibear, you get the red cards. But Misfortune, you do get, I would say, the best legend ability for this deck, which is give a unit ganking, right? If you play your Dazzling Aurora and you get your big Volibear down, and it's just dominating the battlefield, and then the next turn when it readies, your opponent is at 7 points. They just need to hold that battlefield, and they win because that's really their win condition. They need to aggro you out of it. And then suddenly you just exert your leader and your Volibear just goes ganking and moves to the other battlefield. That is a great way to stay in the game for a very slow deck. I also love Bullet Time, which is the Misfortune signature spell. Pay any amount of power to deal that much damage to all enemy units at a battlefield. Gust, which is a great way of slowing your opponent down in the early game. 3 Sabotage, 3 Stack Deck for consistency. Fight or Flight is just one of my favorite cards in the game. Are the other purple cards that you get access to. A lot of the time in these decks, you're also going to see, it's not on the sideboard either, I can't remember the name of the card. It's an 8 cost. You can play a card from your discard for free. That's not in the mix, and that's probably because it can be quite underwhelming if you hit it off Dazzling Aurora the first time. It's literally just going to be Mind Splitter, Mountain Drake, and Volibear. There's no other hits in this one. The sideboard is all spells, which is Unyielding Spirit, Rebuke, Fading Memories, and Possession. Very, very cool. Akai's in the top 16. This one is also on Grove of the God Willow. Lots of 3 counts of lots of different things. We're going to see lots of Kaisers, I'm sure, for the rest of the video, so I won't focus on them too much. Oh, another Kaisa. This one is on Reaver's Row. It's not playing the Grove. 2 Noxus Hopeful, and this one Retreat. They're all very similar with a few differences. Master Yi deck in the top 16. This one's on 9 2-drops, which is a lot more than you might see on average. It's also got Mask of Foresight. It's another Yi deck that's not playing Dazzling Aurora. Of course, it's playing Growth of the Godwillow. We've got Kiana, only 2 Devlin Predators, which is nice for the bank account, right? 1 block in there as well, which is a card that I think there's a lot of value in Riftbound of having a spell card like this as like a one-off, because your opponent's not going to necessarily anticipate that you play give a unit shield 3 and tank this turn. They're probably not going to play around it. If you hide that, they're probably going to be thinking like, huh? Is it like the Cub, for example? I'm not sure I would expect a block to be hidden. So that's a cool card to see in the mixer as well. We've got another Kaisa in the top 16. Once we finish the top 16, we'll look at some of the spicy top 32 lists that made it. This one's on Poro as well. It's on 8 1-drops. Retreats in the mix, 3 Hopefuls, and Mega Mech in the sideboard as well, which can be good in mirrors. Another Kaisa in the top 16, Dangerous Duo. Never seen anybody play this card in the deck. It's got Legion, and when you play me, give a unit +2 might this turn. It's almost like a combat trick. Not quite, but sort of. Not a big fan of that card, if I'm honest. Just 2 Watchers, but 1 in the sideboard. Some Sprite Mothers on the sideboard as well. All right, into some of the more unorthodox lists in the top 32. There's another Ahri deck. This one is also using Scrap Peep. There was a bunch of Yis and a bunch of Kaisers in the top 32, but I wanted to sort of show the less represented leaders. And this one's very similar to what we've seen with Flash Fighter Flight, that Scrap Peep. In the main deck, there's an Invert Timelines there. There's also a Draven on the sideboard, which is interesting. Could be good against Kaisa, I suppose. Another Ahri. This one's not playing the Scrap Peeps unless they're in the sideboard, but they are not. Of course, you could sideboard the Scrap Peeps in and use the Zornborns on like your second or third game if you so desire. Vane's in there. Noxus Hopeful ×2. Then we've got a Misfortune deck, also using Dazzling Aurora in the top 32. This one looking very, very similar with Confront in the mix. Units you play this turn, enter ready. Just 2 bullet times here. In terms of the battlefields, there's increase the points by 1 at the start of each player's beginning phase, channel 1 rune, and when you conquer here, recycle 1 of your runes. There was 1 Victor, I believe just 1 Victor in the top 32. This is using how many seals? All 3 of the yellow seals. We see just 2 Thousand-Tailed Watchers. Lots of 2-drops in this one, or at least lots of variety in the 2-drops. 5, 6, 7. Not actually many 2-drops, especially this BlasCon Fae. You would not want to be playing this on turn 1. Yeah, my apologies for any background noise you can hear. Don't have my usual microphone today, and I live in a very noisy flat currently, but I'm not here for much longer. I've just got a few months left here. But yeah, Machine, Even Draw in the mix, Hidden Blade, Singularity, Grand Stratagem as a big closing play. And then on the sideboard, we've got Commander Ledros and Shen, which is spicy, as well as 1 copy of Divine Judgment. Ahri also made the top 32. This is using the Ahri Alluring and the Time Warp combo. It's such a cool little combo. When I hold, you score 1 point. If you can hold with Ahri and then play a Time Warp, you score so many points because you're going to score again for holding, and then of course you're going to score again for Ahri holding. So Time Warp is just absolutely insane in this deck. It's a really, really cool combo deck. That is for sure. In terms of 2-drops, we have got 7. There's a couple of Yordles, some Sprite Mothers, Jord Colossus, which has Vision, and Defender. There's 2 Tasty Fae Folk, 1 Charm, 3 Defy, 3 On Guard, 3 Retreat, 3 Stupefy, 3 Discipline. So yeah, really good value with the Dreaming Tree. Aspirant's Climb has really nice synergy with the Ahri hold stuff because you can score so many points. And then Grove of the Godwillow, again, just abusing that battlefield when you're going first. On the sideboard, Ahri Inquisitive is an option to bring into the deck. This can be your chosen champion in certain matchups for game 2 and 3. There's more charms, Adaptatron, which is great against gear, and Sona's in the mix there as well. There's Curly from the future because I totally missed when recording that Annie Fiery was actually the chosen champion for this Annie deck. Usually we see the purple Annie, which returns a spell card from your trash and adds it to hand. That's like particularly good in my opinion with Stack Deck, Fight or Flight. It's such a good card. Annie Fiery we don't see as often. It does cost 1 energy more, but you also get 1 might more for your troubles. And it's definitely giving you a different vibe to this deck, giving all of your spells and abilities 1 bonus damage. Would have been interesting if this deck had the purple Annie on the sideboard as well, so you have like a little bit of flexibility. But actually, it's just playing the big Annie Fiery. But the rest of the deck list doesn't look like particularly different despite that big difference. there's not really anything in here which you wouldn't expect to see elsewhere. Like there's a heavy account of Void Seeker and there's one Falling Star, but you would expect to see that anyway. So I think that one thing that would be interesting to see is if maybe with these Annie decks moving forwards, is if we see like one copy of Annie Fiery on the sideboard for certain matchups. Because my gut feeling is the purple Annie is better on average. I just think being able to return a stacked deck already is like really, really good value for a champion. So I'm not too convinced by the champion choice here, although I find it very fascinating. I would maybe just like to see having like one of the other card on the sideboard, right? Like I feel like that might be justifiable. So then you have a bit of flexibility. Like if there's one matchup that Annie Fiery really pops off for you, you can put it on your sideboard and then it could be your chosen champion for game 2 and 3. Very cool to see nonetheless. And let's move on to Star City Games, where we have the full top 8 deck list and one of the top 16 decks. Again, it was a top 4 split, but this Annie deck was the highest seed going into that top 4, so was the favourite, therefore, to take down the whole thing. This one is not playing Scrap Peeps at all, but it is still using Zorn Warrens as the battlefield of choice. Noxus Hopeful is in there as a 2 count. There's 1 Gust, 1 Falling Star, 3 Void Seeker, 3 Ride the Wind, 1 Rebuke, 2 Flash. And then the sideboard's got the 2 Veins, 2 Fading Memories, 1 Rebuke, Falling Star, Gust. Quite similar to what we saw. Kaisa in the top 4. Best Kaisa of the weekend, really. To be fair, there was a Kaisa in the top 4 at the other event, but of course this was like a tied with first Kaisa in the end as the top 4 wasn't played out. 3 Lecturing Yordles, which is maybe a little bit more than we see. Usually 8 1-drops, 8 2-drops I should say. And then 3 Noxus Hopeful, 3 Darius, 3 Watchers, 3 Cleave, 3 Hextech Ray, 3 Retreat, 3 Stupefy, 3 Falling Star, 1 Acarthian Rain, 2 Time Warp. Then on the sideboard, there's a Dr. Mundo, which can be great in mirrors, another Acarthian Rain, 1 Progress Day, 1 Brine here, Thunder Song, which is really spicy when you play me. Opponents can't play cards this turn. Thermo Beam and Smokescreen. Very, very spicy sideboard of Brine here, Thunder Song. Then the other Annie deck, this one also not playing Scrap Peeps at all. Yep, no Scrap Peeps here. Going for the Pouty Poro, so 9 2-drops. 3 Sneaky Deckhands, 3 Kaisa, 3 Darius, 3 Cleave, 3 Gust. I like the Gust personally. Like going Sneaky Deckhand and just protecting with Gust, that is just such a good opening when you're going second. You can't really do much more. I would personally be playing the full play set of Gust. 3 Stack Deck, 2 Fight or Flight, 3 Flash, 3 Ride the Wind, 1 Invert Timelines. That's spicy. Gives you a little bit of card draw and can disrupt your opponent's card draw. And of course, you can discard it if you're Traveling Merchant if you don't want it, or you're on Warrens potentially. 3 Void Seeker. 1 Acceptable Losses as gear removal, 2 Falling Star, 2 Rebuke, a second copy of Annie Stubborn, which is really, really cool. Shout out to my girlfriend, actually, because she's been playing Annie, and she said, couldn't I like play another copy of this in the main deck? It seems kind of good. And I was like, I don't think so. And then the more we played them, I was like, yeah, maybe you could. It's a nice card, really good with Stack Deck, I think, in particular. That's definitely a combo that I like. Fading Memories and Possession in there as well. And then Savjz also made the top 4. Big shout out to Savjz, who is, of course, a fellow content creator. There was definitely some controversy. It would be remiss for me not to say where Savjz did some slightly sketchy things with his showstoppers. I'm probably going to cover it in a whole video. I am convinced it was accidental. I'm convinced. But basically, there was a few situations where Savjz was seen on stream not properly paying the power and necessarily energy cost for Showstopper. I think it happened like 3 times. Very unfortunate. I'm sure he's very gutted about it, and I'm definitely going to cover it in another video. But Savjz is a fantastic player. He's someone I've known for a long time. Played some games against him last week, and he did very, very well this weekend, and he spent a lot of time optimizing his deck lists. More 2-drops than we saw in the other like lists were playing like 7, 9 2-drops in this one, with Trifarian Glory Seeker being in the mix. When you play me, buff me. It's like a card you can play on turn 1 for 2 energy, but you'd rather play it later so you can trigger that Legion ability. 3 First Mate, he loves the Packer Cub, and in his games against Kaisa on stream, this performed really well. You could hide this down at the base against Kaisa, and then they bring in the 1,000-tailed Watcher, and then you reveal the Packer Cub afterwards, and you don't get the minor, like the Thousand-Tailed Watcher doesn't impact the Pack a Cub, right? So it makes the Watcher a lot worse. So it's a really good tech card for dealing with Watcher. Only 2 Fioras, 1 Monk, 2 Kiana, 2 Sett Brawlers alongside the Sett Brawler Chosen Champion. Karma, which is not a card you see very often, which has Vision. And when you recycle 1 or more cards, which includes the ability, buff a friendly unit. Arena Bar, Showstopper, Challenge, Hidden Blade, Wallop, Call to Glory, Divine Judgment. The battlefields of choice, no surprises to see the Monastery. The Candlelit Sanctum, which has synergy with Karma, where when you conquer, here, look at the 2 cards of your main deck. You may recycle 1 or both of them and put those you don't back in any order. So you could recycle 2 if you've got a Karma down on the board and buff 2 friendly units. And also Windswept Hillock. Units here have ganking, which is really, really spicy. I'd imagine that's going to be a bit of a pain for Kaisa to deal with. 1 Divine Judgment. Each player chooses 2 units, 2 gear, 2 runes, and 2 cards in their hand. Recycle the rest. Sabotage, Unyielding Spirit, Salvage, and Vengeance. Big shout out to Savjz. And yeah, probably going to cover the drama in a video because I think a lot needs to be talked about there. And I think the moral of the story is you need to be really, really careful at what your opponent is doing and making sure that they are paying power costs. Because really, while it was Savjz that made the mistake, the responsibility also falls on each of the opponents that didn't call it out. Savjz, I'm convinced me to do it, but we'll cover that in another video. That's not what we're here for, is it? Ting Feng W with Kaisa made the top 8. Patiporo, Student, and Watchful Sentry puts us at 8. 2 energy cards. No 3 drops in this one. There's also a Draven in here. 2 Darius. Like personally, I'd rather just play 3 Darius than 2 Darius and 1 Draven. There is Thousand-Tailed Watcher and the Seal of Rage. That is not something I've seen in a Kaisa deck. Gotta say, I love it. I think the Seals right now are the most underrated cards in Riftbound. If you've got an abundance of card draw, I think you can get away with playing these. Very, very interesting to see it. Obviously, with Kaisa, you're already paying a lot of energy costs anyway. So you would argue, why do you need that with Kaisa? Well, now you're paying even more energy costs. You're going to have so many runes available at the end of the game. And it's going to be good with like Icarthian Rain, Falling Star. If you've got a Seal of Rage, Kaisa ability plus a seal means the Falling Star is going to cost you no power. Crazy value. Really, really cool. I like the inclusion a lot of the Seal of Rage. I really, really do, actually. That's my favorite inclusion I've seen in a Kaisa deck. Very cool. Then we've got Teemo in the top 8, which Teemo is my favorite deck. Lots of different ways you can build this one. This one is not playing any seals, which is my favorite way to play this deck. I love Singularity in this deck, particularly with the blue seals. So Students and Tide Turners are just a must. There's 1 Teemo as an additional. I don't personally love the Teemo in the main deck. Is there the Mutagen card, which is some synergy? There isn't. It's not a bad card. I'd just rather play a 3rd Tide Turner. Obviously, Teemo is going to be more points as a hidden card, though. That's like one big benefit. Traveling Merchant is also in there, which can feed your Dr. Mundo, of course. 2 Yordles, 3 Ember Monks, which is one of my favorite cards as well. This is a 6 Might card. If you reveal something from hidden, 2 Sprite Mothers, again a blue power, Thousand-Tailed Watcher, Dr. Mundo, 1 Gust, 1 Retreat, 3 Stack Debt, 3 Stupefy, 2 Fight or Flight, 1 Guerrilla Warfare, 1 Smokescreen, 2 Sprite Call, 3 Consult the Past, 2 Singularity. I like the list quite a lot. It's pretty similar to mine. The one thing that is missing in this deck, in my opinion, is the blue seals. Mundo is a blue seal, synergy. This is synergy with blue seal. This is synergy with blue seal. Smokescreen, synergy with blue seal. Guerrilla Warfare, synergy with blue seal. Singularity, synergy with blue seal. And also hiding cards can also be synergy with blue seal. Okay, yes, with Teemo, you might want to just pay an energy to hide a card. But sometimes you might just want to use that energy to play something else, right? Like leave an energy open for a Gust as just one example. And instead, you can pay the power cost with the seal. I just love the seals, mate, in this deck with Stack Deck where you can bottom deck them, with Traveling Merchant where you can discard them if you don't want more, with Sprite Mothers. I think that the blue seal is just an absolute must in this list. So I would highly encourage everybody, if you're going to play this list, add in 3 blue seals, mate. There's my advice for you, but you can feel free to ignore it. The sideboard is Gust, Rebuke, Smokescreen, Sprite Mother, Singularity, Rise of the Sunder. I really like this Teemo list. Very similar to mine. Like I say, I would personally like to see the seals. The battlefields are really interesting because you've got Bandletree, which is like the generically good battlefield for Teemo. You've got Zorn Warrens, which is when you conquer, discard 1 and draw 1. This kind of just like fine for everybody. Like everybody's kind of fine with this. It's good for Dr. Mundo. But then the Trifarian Warcamp looks really weird, right? Why on earth would you play Trifarian Warcamp, you might ask? You have like no swarm at all. And the answer is because it's actually a bit of a tech against Kaisa and heavy removal decks, because it just changes the threshold slightly on removal spells. For example, your Ember Monk, if you reveal a hidden card, is going to be 7 might instead of 6, which puts it out of the range of a Falling Star. So yeah, big shout out to Prismaticism. I love the deck. Please try the Blue Seals and become a convert of the Blue Seal Believer Club. I think it's a one-man club for now, but we'll get there. I've been literally saying it for like 3-4 months that I'm convinced 3 Blue Seals is like giga good in this deck, and I haven't changed my opinion. But I also like the Trifarian Warcamp Battlefield as a Kaisa deck. Something I've been doing too. Speaking of Kaisa, Kaisa deck with Arena's Greatest, Dreaming Tree, and Reaver's Row. Legion Rearguard, not something you see all that often. 3 Darius, 2 Icarthian Rain, 2 Void Seekers. There's no Time Warp in the main deck, but it's on the sideboard, as well as an unchecked power, Sprite Mother, Convergent Mutation, Void Seeker, and Smokescreen. 2 more decks to look at. It's another Kaisa. I've spoken enough about Kaisa for one lifetime, I think. Sorry, though. Big congratulations to Vincent. And finally, a top 16 deck. It was the only top 16 list available at the time of recording. You can check the link in the description to see some more deck lists as they become available. It's another Teemo list. This one is on Grove of Godwillow, just looking to abuse going first. I actually like that idea. Again, I think that it's like such a good battlefield. You could, the other Teemo deck we saw didn't really have one battlefield that's particularly good to abuse going first. So I actually really like the inclusion of Grove of Godwillow. Then when you hold here, you may channel 1 Rune Exhausted. So it's actually like 2 battlefields here designed to be good when going first. So very, very fascinating. I would imagine that it's like the concept is that here is your opponent. When you go second, you're expecting your opponent to play a battlefield like Grove of the Godwillow. So, okay, they hold this one, you hold this one. I would imagine that's sort of the concept of this one. You probably pick Bandletree when going first. Pick this one, you go first, pick this one, go second. It's risky, but it's probably going to work out most of the time. And then this one is playing 8 2-drops, 3 Ember Monks. I love Ember Monk. Mega Mech is in there, which is very, very good against Kaisa. Of course, Dr. Mundo is great against Kaisa too. And then there's 2 Thousand Tail Watchers, 3 Stack Deck, 3 Stupefy, 2 Convergent Mutation. You can do some really nice things with the Teemo and stuff like that with this deck. Also, I guess with the Tide Turner and Traveling Merchants. Consult the Past, Inverted Timelines, Ride the Wind, Guerrilla Warfare. I definitely prefer the Teemo list. This one, I definitely prefer this one. It's more my style, where it's like more tempo orientated, a little bit less all in on the Dr. Mundo, like no Ride the Wind in this one at all. Maybe on the sideboard there's not any at all actually, which is very, very interesting. It's like more of a tempo style deck, which is a little bit more my play style and how I like to play Teemo. This one's a little bit more control heavy, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I do like the battlefield selection more on this one. I think the battlefield selection is really interesting. I like the Trifarian Warcamp, to be fair, and Bandletree, but maybe the Zorn Warrens I'm not too convinced by as the battlefield selection, when you could pick something that's like really good going first. Kind of seems to be the meta, right? Yeah, thanks everyone so much for watching. Thanks to the tournament organizers. Thanks to the players. Thanks to the great production from 20 Law Pro and Turnemsideways. I enjoyed it. And thanks to Card Market for sponsoring the video. Give it a like, subscribe for more, and see you all on the next video very soon.